Hello, good afternoon and welcome to my channel and welcome to the Costa Blanca in Spain. I hope you're well wherever you are. Today I thought I'd take you for a little walk and talk to you about something that's been on my mind this last week, and that is the subject of worrying. Now, in my life I've done an awful lot of worrying and I'm still no expert on it. If I were an expert I would probably worry an awful lot less than I do. But I thought, well, let's just reflect on this a little bit, and I'll put it into the context of my move to Spain. Okay, so, and what I'll do is I'll walk down to the port below, the marina area. I guess it's going to be quite busy, so this might be a video with a few edits in because I'm not so keen on talking as I pass people in the streets, and it's starting to get busier here now. It's what is it, middle of June, and more tourists are coming to the area now, so I guess we're going to see a lot of people. Anyway, I'll go this way, I think. Hold on. Yeah, so it's been a very busy week. A lot of things that we've done and a lot of things we've achieved, ranging from small things like having lots of parcels delivered, things that we need for our apartment, and yeah, we've managed to return lots of parcels as well, which seems to be part of the overall process that we're going through. And the returning has been a little bit more complicated than the receiving of parcels, because we had to go to the post office here in town and talk to people. And yeah, it's a reminder that my Spanish needs real urgent attention. Yeah, so lots of little things like that, and then the big thing is that as of yesterday I'm now officially a Spanish resident. So that sounds easy, but believe me, we have had one hell of a game trying to sort out all the paperwork that was needed for that. But it ended up being a fairly simple and straightforward process yesterday at some immigration office. I don't know, I can't even remember the name of the town now. It was somewhere in rural Alicante, so I think it was about 50 kilometres inland from the city of Alicante. So that's all done, and now we can start focusing on two other things, which is to get my wife's residency sorted out. That might not be so simple, but we will see. And trying to get myself onto the public healthcare register or system, and yeah, that's starting to become a bit clearer, but we need to wait a little bit longer for that. There's actually been progress on that, and I'm feeling more optimistic about it all, but at the moment I don't have access to public healthcare. I only have my private health insurance, which means my pre-existing conditions are not currently covered. So that's quite an urgent thing that we need to work on. Anyway, the point of me telling you all this is I have done quite a lot of worrying about all of this. So what are we, about six and a half weeks we've been here in Spain. And as I say, only yesterday we got the residency, so it took all that time to get a bank account, to get some kind of number called a NIE, N-I-E number, to get a padron, which is a registration at the town hall, and then the residency itself, and the health insurance, the private health insurance. So it took 6 weeks to do all of that, and now we have to start again for my wife. She's sort of piggybacking on my EU citizenship, but I'm guessing we might have to prove some other things, like the fact that we really are married. So, but we will see. We'll see how that goes. But last year when I was living in Devon, I did have some struggles with my mental health. I did have quite a lot of anxiety, and there were times when I felt quite down. And I got some help for this. And I thought I'd solved the problem. You know, I've been feeling, or I had been feeling a lot more relaxed, a lot calmer about things. And generally enjoying life a lot more, I think. And maybe that's why we kind of were able to pluck up the courage and come here. You know, I'm not sure I would have been able to do such a big thing if my mental health had been in the state it had been in last year. So yeah, so I've been in a good place for quite a long time, but things have steadily got a bit worse this last couple of weeks, and I have been mithering over things and worrying about things. And at first I thought, it's probably just the paperwork. And I also thought it might have been because I was neglecting my medication a little bit, shall we say. So because I don't have any healthcare cover, it's not so easy for me to get any medication at the moment. Now I brought plenty with me, but I was a bit concerned it might run out, and so I've been reducing the frequency that I've been taking it, which is maybe a bit of a foolish thing to do, because really you should get medical consultation. You should talk to a doctor before you do that kind of thing. So I've gone back to the normal dose now and the normal frequency, and hopefully I'll start to feel a bit better. But yeah, the thing that kind of made me realise there was a problem was actually with my daughter. So one of my children, one of my kids, contacted me this week with some really good and exciting news, and she's got a real incredible opportunity in life that's cropped up. And I'm very proud of her, and I think she's done amazingly well to have got herself this opportunity. But when she announced it, rather than being happy for her and excited and celebrating her success, I went straight into what are the risks? What could go wrong with this? What do you need to do to mitigate the risks? So in other words, I was being a bit of a mitherer. I was worrying about all of this. And I was really disappointed in myself. I thought that this isn't the person I want to be. This isn't the father I want to be. It's not the person I want to be. Because I know it has an impact on her. I know it. Not only does it spoil the moment, but it sows the seeds of doubt in her own mind, and then she starts, or there's a risk that she will start worrying about things and not throw herself fully into this opportunity. And I don't want to be the person that holds her back in any way. And I don't want to be the person that makes her doubt herself. And I don't want her to be like me. I don't want her to be worrying about everything all the time. I want her to really make the most out of life and to go for it wholeheartedly, to throw herself into whatever opportunities come her way and make the best out of life, or make the most out of life. But I wasn't like that. I went straight into what could go wrong. And okay, afterwards, after I'd stopped worrying, I did indeed celebrate her success, as it were, or at least I expressed my, my delight, and I told her how proud I was of her and all of this. But I think maybe then it was too late, because what she will remember when she looks back on this is my initial reaction, which was one of fear and hesitation and so on. Yeah. So that got me thinking. I thought, well, what led me to react like that? What is it about me that causes me to be like that? And well, it's not entirely a negative quality, actually. In fact, it's not a negative quality at all. It's just that, I've managed lots of big projects in my life. I've made lots of big moves, done some quite big things in my life, and I'm just the sort of person who likes to evaluate the risk before taking the plunge. Although I didn't do too much risk evaluation or risk assessment with coming to Spain, but generally that's the kind of approach I take, and I think it's stood me in good stead. I think it made me a good project manager. It made me a good senior manager of some large corporations, and maybe it in some ways made me a good father and a good husband. I've done a lot. I've raised a family, done my bit in terms of raising a family together with my wife. So I'm not being too hard on myself, but I do want to change. I do want to become more relaxed. And that leads me on to this life I have now in Spain. And all the struggles I've had. I'm just looking for somewhere quiet to go. I'll go over here, I think. I thought about all the worrying I've done over the paperwork here in Spain, and I've said before, I want to take the time to appreciate the actual wonder of this country and how lucky I am to be here, and all there is to learn and appreciate about life here, and not to just spend all my time thinking about the bureaucracy and the paperwork and so on. And I thought to myself, well, actually that's really why I'm here. There's a German word, Sehnsucht, I think it is, to have a longing for something, perhaps something that you don't yet fully know or understand, or that you appreciate. So I think philosophers wrote about this idea, and I think C.S. Lewis also wrote about this word. It's amazing how one word can evoke so much deep thinking and soul searching. But it's led me to start thinking, well, what is it that I yearn for? And maybe what I yearn for is personal transformation. It is to be more at peace, to be more at ease with myself, to be more content. So contentment is something I look for. And I've lived in lots of places, and I've not found that yet. I've had glimpses of it, but I've not really found it. And that's because the issue that I face is in my mind, not in the place where I am, And here, it's beautiful. I love the climate, I love the mountains and the Mediterranean Sea. But it doesn't automatically or magically solve all the problems in terms of the way I think about life and the world and so on. So I bring with me some of these struggles wherever I happen to be in the world. And I thought about, for example, my life in Germany, and I mean, I can't sum it up in in a short video, but I look back on my time living in Germany and realise that during those 15 years, particularly the first 10 years, I had a great deal of anxiety. I really did, and I really worried about a lot of things. And when I first moved over there, I moved over there with my family. So my wife gave up her work, my children gave up their schools, and I felt the weight of that responsibility. I felt that it was my job to get them through that difficult transition in their lives and to get them into a good place. And one of the fears I had was, what if I lose my job? What if I lose my job and I can no longer support them and that it all falls apart? And I was really scared of that. And a silly example, but I was at work, and in Germany, like in many EU countries, there's something called, I think I'm right, I think it's called the EU Working Time Directive. So you are not allowed by law to work more than a certain number of hours. And by law you have to also have a certain number of hours between your different work shifts, if you like. And I also happened to record the amount of hours I spent on different projects so that my time could be charged to the customer of these projects. And so this time recording was something I was doing, and a colleague of mine who was he had a very authoritative voice, and he was the kind of character you look up to and respect. And he spoke in a deep, serious manner, and he said, on the topic of working hours and recording your time and that, he said, be careful, be very careful. And he never explained what he meant by that, but I kind of interpreted it that this was something taken seriously, that if I worked too many hours I would be breaking the law and could get into trouble. The police could come knocking on my door. If I didn't work enough hours, then I'm not fulfilling my contract to work and I could get sacked. So my mind jumped to all these sort of disaster scenarios, you know, that tied in with my fear of letting my family down because they were reliant on me. Now, in 15 years, I never once had an issue with this. But this fear drove me to almost obsessive behaviour. You know, every day trying to record what hours I'd spent working on things, and you know, did I have enough breaks, and did I had to make lots of micro decisions. You know, if I was mowing the grass at the weekend, had a good idea about my project at work, and went back to my laptop and typed up the idea for half an hour, do I count that as working time or not? I mean, it was very silly and very pathetic, and you know, I was in a senior position and I had a lot of responsibility, and basically you do what needs to be done to get the job done, and no one really cares about the details of exactly what hours you work and so on. And so I never had any issue with it, but it became a bit of an obsession. But it was part of this bigger fear of it all falling apart. So I had this was part of my experience of living in Germany. And then I think back to when I was in the UK working. You know, I remember, again, another silly example, but I remember when we worked in the office, because it was before the internet, I would walk briskly between meeting rooms. I would never just amble along casually. I would always walk briskly, you know, striding along the corridors, looking like there was a sense of urgency, looking like the work I was doing was of the utmost importance and that I couldn't hang around. It was part of this mindset of, you know, part of the I guess it was part of the culture, part of the company culture, that if you're in a senior position, then you need to look like you're in a senior position. You need to look like you're important, and there was also the things about the working hours there, but there it was different to Germany. There it was work long hours. So there was a mindset, and I guess it was probably maybe a male-dominated kind of mindset, I don't know, but it was kind of impressive and important and essential to work long hours, because that showed you were busy, it showed that your work was important, and you didn't want to go home before the boss went home, and you didn't want to get there later than the boss was there. And I remember I worked for a while in Bristol, and at the end of the day I had to drive home to the West Midlands, so that was about an hour and a half if the traffic was smooth, maybe longer if the traffic was bad. And I'd be stuck there just basically waiting for my boss to finish, even though I had nothing to do. So there was this, it was a strange culture. So why am I talking about all these things? What's this got to do with worrying, and what's this got to do with Spain? Well, I think what I'm saying is that this kind of mindset that I've developed from working in Northern Europe is very different to the culture that we have here in Spain. And obviously I've only been here for 6 weeks, so I've still got a lot to learn. But my first impressions are that life here is very different. And I read on a Facebook post a couple of weeks ago, someone said, when you're struggling with all this paperwork and bureaucracy, don't try to change Spain, let Spain change you. And that really spoke to me, and I thought, that's it, that's why I'm here. I want to change, I want to be a different person, I want to be more like how I imagine the Spanish to be. You know, I want to be more relaxed. That, you know, they wouldn't be striding purposefully between meeting rooms and working long hours and recording every hour spent on every different task they worked on. I can imagine that they would be much more chilled. They would take much more time for socialising, spending time with family and friends, eating lovely fresh fruit and vegetables, and generally having a healthier lifestyle, and one where there is much more balance and where you're not stressed and where you're not worrying all the time. Now, I'm not saying there isn't stress here, I'm not saying that people don't work hard, I'm not saying that mental health issues don't exist here, because of course that would just be a foolish thing to say. But again, coming back to this word, this Sehnsucht, I'm looking for something that is different to that Northern European corporate culture mindset. So I want to develop a healthier attitude to life, and I have a feeling I can find it here. I get a little glimpse of it when I see the families out at 10 or 11 in the evenings, eating meals together or playing on the beach together, walking slower than I've ever seen people walking. By the way, it's too hot to walk quickly here anyway. So I've learnt myself to slow down, to walk at a nice gentle pace, and to see life differently, to be calmer, and stop worrying over trivial little things that don't really matter. And maybe if I really work at this, I will finally find what it is I've been looking for in all these towns and countries that I've lived. And that is peace and happiness. Yeah, so that's it. That's what I've been thinking about this last week. What do you think? Do you think I can change? Do you think we can change? And one thing I need to become is more relaxed about talking to the camera when people walk past me. Okay, well, thanks for joining me. Hope there was something there of interest for you, something that maybe made you think, something that was maybe helpful. All right, well, I'm going to go now because there's too many people around and I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. So take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking if you liked it. Thanks for all your interaction. Take care of yourselves. And I'll make another video soon. Thank you then. Bye.